What if I told you America is about to experience weather whiplash? I'm looking at computer models right now that show something absolutely incredible unfolding over the next week. We're about to see the United States literally split into two completely different weather worlds. And this isn't just a minor temperature difference. We're talking about a divide so dramatic, it'll feel like two different seasons happening simultaneously. Picture this scenario. It's this weekend, and someone in Phoenix is enjoying 80-degree weather, maybe planning a barbecue or hitting the golf course. Meanwhile, just 1,000 miles away in Pennsylvania, temperatures are plunging to 25 degrees below zero, so cold that trees could literally explode from the rapid temperature changes. This is the kind of weather setup that meteorologists dream about studying, but millions of Americans are about to live through. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. A massive ridge of high pressure is building across the western United States like a giant atmospheric wall. This ridge is going to act like a blowtorch, pumping temperatures well above normal across much of the west and central plains. But here's where it gets fascinating and dangerous. While this ridge builds in the west, it's going to force the jet stream into an extreme configuration over the eastern United States. Instead of flowing relatively straight across the country, it's going to dive deep into Canada, pick up massive amounts of Arctic air, and then slam that frigid air straight down into the eastern third of the country. We're not talking about one Arctic blast. We're talking about two of them, back to back, with the second one being potentially historic. The first Arctic surge arrives Wednesday. Temperatures across the eastern United States are going to drop 20 to 30 degrees in a matter of hours. But that's just the warm-up act. The main event comes Friday and Saturday. That second Arctic blast is going to be the kind that creates emergency situations. We're looking at temperature drops of up to 50 degrees in just 24 hours across parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. When temperatures fall that fast, that dramatically, infrastructure starts failing. Water pipes burst, power grids strain under massive demand. Heating systems that can't keep up with the brutal cold simply give out. And remember, we still have over 1,500 schools closed today across the United States because of previous winter weather and ongoing cold. This next blast could extend those closures indefinitely. But here's what makes this setup truly remarkable from a meteorological standpoint. While the eastern United States is getting pummeled by Arctic air, the western United States is going to experience the opposite extreme. We're talking about temperatures 20 to 25 degrees above normal, creating summer-like conditions in February. This temperature contrast is going to create an incredibly unstable atmosphere. And unstable atmospheres breed storms. Starting today, we're going to see the first signs of this active pattern. A low-pressure system is developing over the Mississippi Valley that's already producing thunderstorms in the Deep South. Yes, thunderstorms in February, while simultaneously creating snow showers in the Ohio Valley. This is just the beginning. By Friday, an Alberta Clipper, that's a fast-moving storm system from Canada, is going to dive south into this temperature contrast zone. When these systems encounter such dramatic temperature differences, they can intensify rapidly. We're looking at the potential for heavy snow across Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. But more concerning are the snow squalls that could develop. These are like mini blizzards that can drop visibility to near zero in minutes and dump several inches of snow in a very short time. If you're planning to travel through Indianapolis, Columbus, or Cleveland on Friday morning, you need to be prepared for potentially dangerous conditions that could develop very quickly. As this system moves east, it's going to bring snow as far south as North Carolina and Virginia. These areas just dealt with over a foot of snow this past weekend, and now they're looking at potentially another few inches on top of that. But here's where this story gets really intense. By Saturday, this storm system is going to position itself off the New England coast and essentially park there. When storms do this, when they become stationary just offshore, they can create blizzard conditions that persist for hours or even days. With over a foot of snow already on the ground across much of New England, Any additional snow combined with high winds is going to create genuine blizzard conditions. We're talking about whiteout conditions, dangerous wind chills, and the potential for widespread power outages. The human impact of this pattern is going to be significant. Energy demand is going to skyrocket across the eastern United States, just as we're dealing with ongoing power outages from previous storms. Heating systems are going to be pushed to their limits. Emergency shelters are going to face unprecedented demand. Meanwhile, the agricultural implications are staggering. Livestock across the affected regions are going to face life-threatening conditions. Farmers are going to be working around the clock just to keep animals alive. The psychological toll on people shouldn't be underestimated either. After weeks of dealing with extreme winter conditions, the mental exhaustion is real. Seasonal affective disorder becomes more pronounced when winter seems to drag on endlessly with no relief in sight. Healthcare systems are also going to face unique challenges. Emergency rooms typically see increases in heart attacks during extreme cold events, as shoveling snow and dealing with frigid temperatures puts extra stress on the cardiovascular system. Hypothermia and frostbite cases are going to rise significantly. The economic ripple effects are going to be felt across multiple sectors. Airlines are already preparing for widespread flight cancellations. The freight industry is bracing for major delays as truck drivers simply can't operate safely in these conditions. Retail businesses are going to see decreased foot traffic, while utility companies face their biggest test of the winter season. But here's what makes this pattern particularly challenging to forecast and prepare for. These extreme temperature contrasts create incredibly dynamic atmospheric conditions. Small changes in the position of the jet stream or the strength of these pressure systems can have huge impacts on who gets what type of weather. The models are showing good agreement on the big picture: the western heat, the eastern cold, the storm systems. But the specific details of exactly where the heaviest snow falls, exactly how cold it gets in specific locations, those details are still being worked out. What we do know is that this pattern is going to persist. This isn't a quick-hitting system that moves through and then we return to normal. The atmospheric setup that's creating this extreme divide is going to lock in place for at least a week, possibly longer. The jet stream configuration that's developing is what meteorologists call a strongly amplified pattern. These patterns tend to be very stable once they establish themselves, meaning the weather extremes can persist for extended periods. This is particularly concerning for emergency management officials, who are already dealing with ongoing recovery efforts from previous winter storms. Resources are stretched thin, and now they're facing the possibility of even more severe conditions. By the middle of February, the models suggest this rigid pattern might finally break down. When it does, we could see a dramatic flip to more seasonal or even above normal temperatures across much of the country. But that transition period could bring its own challenges. Rapid temperature changes, potential flooding from snowmelt, and the possibility of severe weather as the seasons effectively fast forward from winter to spring. The polar vortex, that spinning mass of cold air usually locked over the Arctic, shows signs of potential disruption later in February. If that happens, we could see even more extreme cold outbreaks, potentially affecting areas that rarely experience such conditions. This is the kind of weather pattern that defines entire winters. The winter of 2026 is already being remembered for its extremes, and we're potentially adding another chapter to that story. Climate scientists are closely watching this pattern as well, as it represents an extreme example of the kind of weather variability that can occur within our current climate system. While individual weather events can't be directly attributed to long-term climate trends, the increasing frequency of these extreme patterns is something that researchers are studying intensively. For those in the path of the Arctic blasts, preparation is critical. Stock up on supplies while you still can. Ensure your heating systems are working properly. Have backup plans for power outages. Check on elderly neighbors who might be vulnerable to extreme cold. For those experiencing the warmth in the West, don't get too comfortable. Weather patterns like this are inherently unstable, and changes can come quickly. The economic implications are enormous. Energy markets are going to be volatile. Transportation networks will face significant disruptions. Supply chains that are still recovering from previous winter storms are going to be tested again. This is weather as a force of nature in its purest form. The atmosphere demonstrating its incredible power to create conditions that can be life-threatening in one region, while benign just hundreds of miles away. The story we're watching unfold over the next week is going to be remarkable from every perspective: meteorological, human, economic, and logistical. Emergency preparedness officials are urging people to take this seriously. Have emergency kits ready. Know where your nearest warming center is located. Keep extra medications on hand in case you can't get to a pharmacy. Have a communication plan with family members. The contrast between what's happening in different parts of the country is going to be stark enough to seem almost surreal. Social media is going to be filled with photos of people in shorts in Arizona, next to images of snow-buried cars in Pennsylvania. This is the kind of weather event that gets studied in meteorology textbooks for years to come. Students will analyze the atmospheric dynamics, the forecasting challenges, and the societal impacts long after the snow melts and temperatures return to normal. Stay alert, stay prepared, and stay safe. This dramatic weather divide is about to become very real for millions of Americans, and the next week is going to be one that people remember for a very long time.